45 and his republican cronies have made three big mistakes already. Probably more than that, but it says they only made three. A Democratic aide working on impeachment scorned the 110-page brief that 45's lawyers filed on Monday. It's a 110-page tweet, maybe the longest tweet in history. The aide said another aide pointed out that the argument that abuse of power is not impeachable was rejected even by Jonathan Turley, the attorney called by Republicans during House proceedings. Technically, the abuse of power is an impeachable offense. So what he did, when 45 abused his power, that is impeachable. The squatter's argument comes down to the bald assertion that a squatter can abuse power by enlisting a foreign power to corrupt an election. That's technically, like I said, with the abuse of power that's impeachable. A trifecta abuse of power, betrayal of national security, and election rigging that the farmer saw is precisely the sort of conduct deserving of impeachment. But while the two aides agree with the reference from 45's attorneys on page 81 of their brief that the July 25th call was the most important piece of evidence, they remind us that it was also the most damning. In that call, 45, like a failed mob boss, makes Ukraine an offer it cannot refuse. Do us a favor, though. 45 will release aid that the Congress deemed to be in our national security interest in exchange for investigating Burisma and former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. But put it differently, 45 will endanger national security to get a foreign government's help smearing an American political opponent. Given the absence of factual evidence disputing key facts against the squatter, his defense boils down to the assertion that what 45 did was okay. One Democratic aide pointed out 45 has attempted to use national security as a sword against a domestic political adversary. Now Senate Republicans are being dragooned to approve that stunning proposition. 45 and his lawyers and the Republicans have made three critical errors. The first was White House counsel Pat Cipollini's October 8th letter in which the White House flatly refused to allow any witnesses to testify or documents to be produced. It was not a formal assertion of executive privilege, but rather a more egregious version of obstruction that was the basis for Richard Nixon's trial. The third article of impeachment. This was blunder by Cipollini, in essence putting 45's obstruction in writing. If permitted, any squatter could declare his impeachment unfair and hide or destroy evidence. Acquittal on this article would mean that any future Republican Congress would have no recourse for it. If, for example, a Democratic president committed treason and uncovered his tricks for intimidating witnesses and shredding documents, it's a recipe for a totalitarian state in which the king can do whatever he deems necessary to stay in power. Second, the Senate and 45 have been banking on a non-trial with no new witnesses or evidence. If that is how they intend to spare 45 in the Senate from the humiliation of overwhelming, persuasive evidence of the squatter's guilt. The problem is that the Americans overwhelmingly think that this is wrong. As in prior surveys, CNN's newest poll finds that nearly 7 in 10 people, 69% said that the upcoming trial should feature testimony from new witnesses who did not testify in the House impeachment inquiry. And as Democrats in the Senate seek to persuade at least 4 Republican senators to join them on votes over allowing witnesses in the trial, the Republican rank and file are divided on the question. 48% say they want new witnesses, while the other 44% say they do not. To make matters worse, a significant majority of Americans already consider 45 guilty of the charges set forth in the articles. 58% say 45 abused the power of the squadron to obtain an improper personal political benefit, and 57% say that it is true that he obstructed the House of Representatives in its impeachment inquiry. The CNN poll finds. And trying to whitewash his conduct by suppressing evidence, 45 and by extension Republicans in the Senate will look like they are engaged in a cover-up, which they are. 45 might win acquittal because Senate Republicans are spineless and utterly lost in the courts of public opinion. The more obvious the cover-up, the more that 69% of Americans will come to see this trial as a fraud and as 45 is guilty. Third Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, apparently worried that Americans will watch every minute of historic proceedings and anxious to exonerate 45 quickly, which 45 isn't exonerated as he likes to think he is. It seeks to give each side 24 hours of argument over 2 days beginning at 1 p.m. and allowing for some breaks. Mitch McConnell's preferred schedule would result in a trial in the dead of night. Nothing smells more like a cover-up than a trial at 2 a.m. 45 and his cronies seem so certain of acquittal that they are oblivious to the consequences of their tactics. In conducting a cover-up in plain sight, they convince a substantial majority of Americans that 45 is guilty as fuck, and the Senate accomplices are doing all his dirty work.